Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Derek Afasi. I'm the owner of Afasi Financial Group and retiresharp.com. Today's topic, I want to go in depth regarding retirement annuity plans and delve into the pros and, more importantly, the cons with these types of plans, showing individuals when they're thinking about leveraging an annuity for their retirement strategies, when you could utilize that as a good accumulation strategy, a good max income strategy, or kind of a combination of both. Now, in theory, a lot of the things I'm going to be speaking about in theory sound great. In reality, there's a lot of contracts out there. There's a lot of insurance companies that are offering contracts, and there's what I like to call smoke and mirrors involved, meaning that there's a lot of what sounds really good offers, and then when we look underneath the hood and we delve into the specifics, could really result in a horrible situation for the client. So I'm going to tell you when an annuity plan or portions of your dollars could be leveraged to correct annuity plans based upon what your goals are, and then also expose when there's a lot of problems with those plans, and then ultimately create precise strategies and solutions. So you could say, okay, if I'm looking to get set up in this sort of avenue, how can I make sure to avoid the mistakes at all costs? So, at any point in time, I'm going to be covering a lot of information. Take down notes, and if you find something, valuable or interesting and you want to speak to a specialist, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call at any time. It's 1-800-566-1002. And when you speak to one of the assistants, just tell them that you watched the retirement annuity plan video and you were interested in speaking with a specialist in your particular area that will regard your specific situation. So to get started, I want to go back and look at what exactly makes up a retirement plan. With regular financial planning, how exactly does this work? And there's two main stages to retirement planning. You have an accumulation stage and then a preservation/distribution stage. So when somebody is many years out from retirement, they're ultimately trying to accumulate their assets as much as possible, try to, diversify so that they're having the best risk-adjusted returns that could grow this money and utilize the power of compound interest working in a positive direction to constantly add more and more values into their accounts and add more and more growth into their assets. Now, when it starts to come towards those retirement years, and now maybe that person's only a couple years out or they're currently retired, that's where preservation and distribution is very important. You can't leverage that same sort of accumulation strategy because taking on that much more risk when you might not be contributing to those types of plans could be, resulting in a complete retirement disaster. So I'm going to explain to you how these typical strategies work without leveraging annuities, and then in theory how an annuity could help you out in that situation, and then also go over the cons with annuities and ultimately, what are solutions while, positioning annuities properly with these two main categories and two main strategies. So to start off with the accumulation strategy, typical individuals, what they're doing is they're investing their monies into 401ks, Roth 401ks, traditional IRAs, and then, Roth IRAs as well, and then some brokerage accounts, meaning like non-qualified monies. So these are going to be the typical retirement plans that individuals are trying to save monies, push monies aside, invest those dollars, and try to have the investments grow so that they're having these nice large buckets that will be there for the time when they're looking to retire, when they understand they're not going to be working anymore and they're going to have to start taking distributions from there later on. Now, the good thing to note about all these types of plans, the majority any type of account, is if we break it down to its most simplistic terms, there's a formula that you could kind of think of these like a bucket. So the way on how this formula works that will grow this bucket or could potentially shrink this bucket goes by contributions plus rate of return equals whatever the account value is or the account balance is. So what that means is, like with a typical 401k plan, an individual would go start working for a company, they would get their employee benefits package, and they say, okay, well, I understand that I could take a portion of my salary and invest into an employer-sponsored plan such as a 401k. So what they're doing is they're adding contributions into this plan. So that's going to be a positive each time that they're adding dollars into the plan. It's going to obviously add positives into this account. And then the other side of the coin is the rate of return side. So like if you have a 401k plan and you have 401k related options, what typically happens is it's employer sponsored and you're going to be limited on your funding options. So you might have anywhere between 10 to 25 different funds to choose from. Kind of think of them as eggs in your basket to choose from. And ultimately, if you choose the correct allocation and that allocation produces a positive result, a positive rate of return, well, then that's going to be an extra positive into your account. So you're going to have two positives working, towards your account. And this is very prevalent in the years of like 1980 through 2000, when you had a large bullish market that was, exceeding over 1,000% growth within the stock market. So individuals that allocated their monies towards the stock market, they were ultimately receiving both positives from their contribution and positives from the rate of return, and everything was, was fantastic. And they were thinking, okay, as long as I throw money in the stock market, my account balance should never go down. And that's the trick with understanding this rate of return side, because ultimately if someone's contributing dollars into a plan, that's their controllables. This is exactly what they can control at all times. If they want to throw $10,000 into their plan that year, well, then that could add a positive of $10,000. If they don't want to put anything into that plan, well, then they're not going to add anything in there. And ultimately, if you don't add anything into a plan, there's nothing to start off with, and that plan's not going to grow. So there has to be a type of balance, but understand that like the contribution side is an actual controllable. You can control what you're utilizing on that contribution side. This rate of return side is what is usually the most important and is usually placed, by the wayside the most often. So that means individuals don't really care too much for the strategy, or they don't really know how to choose the strategy properly, and this results in some retirement disaster. What I mean by that is if we're looking at this rate of return side, and an individual has anywhere between 10 to 25 different funds or eggs in their basket to choose from, and let's say that they correlate all those funds towards aggressive and to like U.S. based equities or international based based stocks, U.S. based stocks. If they go and they're tying their money to whatever the performance is going to happen within the stock market, and the stock market goes up, well, then they're going to be satisfied. But years when the stock market goes down, like in 2001, or you had the Great Recession in 2008. This is where you realize that this rate of return side is very important to try to at least have some sort of positives in there, or try to have some consistency within that account. So oftentimes what's overlooked is just trying to leave monies in the market, or what's overlooked is not diversifying properly or not having a proper asset allocation strategy, and it leaves this individual susceptible to a lot of negatives. So usually individuals do not realize that losses could hurt far worse than gains could help you, especially when you're getting near that retirement age, when you don't have as much of a time horizon to take those large bumps in the road, and you experience a large drawdown in 2001 or 2008, that could result in thousands of dollars of retirement monies lost, and ultimately correlate to many more years that you have to work to try to reaccumulate all those values and all those dollars. So what I mean by that, if I pull up this chart, what this chart tells us is for whatever your negative is one year, you're going to need that much more of a positive the next year just to get back to break even. So like over here, if your account experienced a minus 10% loss the first year, you're going to need an 11% gain the next year just to get back to break even. If you experience an even larger loss of minus 30% first year, you're going to need a 43% gain the next year just to get back to break even. You can't just say if I lose 10% and gain 10% the next year, then my account is completely even. And if we look at a very extreme example of saying if you lose 50% one year, you're going to need a 100% gain the next year just to get back to break even. So when I say losses could hurt far worse than gains could help you in retirement, if you think of like an individual portfolio or possibly even your own portfolio, and let's say you have monies that are comprised of $1 million and your account loses 50% one year, then it gains 50% the next year, well, the average between these 2 years is 0%. In reality, your account balance would have went down to $500,000 after the first year and would have only gained to $750,000 the next year, so you would have resulted in a minus 25% loss, real loss, and minus $250,000 worth of value. even though everything on paper was saying, oh, well, experience went down 50, went up 50, everything looks good. So, that's ultimately the mistake, and this is why it's very important to at least reduce those negatives, and more importantly, to reduce those negatives the closer that you get to those retirement years. So now if we utilize that traditional concept, and then we're trying to pull monies out of that account, that's where an individual could fall victim to something known as reverse dollar cost averaging. And we could take the idea of like a traditional IRA as an example. Let's say that somebody hits their retirement age, and let's say they're age 65, and they now have a whole slew of monies from a 401k account, and they roll that over into a traditional IRA, and they say, okay, well, I'm going to stay with that same accumulation mindset, and I'm not going to change up to a wealth preservation and distribution. How exactly, what's an example of what this could look like? If we look at that same sort of bucket, well, now this individual is not adding any contributions, so now they have to rely on this rate of return. And there's some additional, not necessarily invisible negatives in there, but there's some negatives that are essentially happening with this bucket, and there are little holes in the bottom of this bucket that result in this reverse dollar cost averaging effect. And what I mean by that is the power of compound interest putting pressure against your accounts that can liquidate retirement accounts very quickly, resulting in the individual having no more money left when they're in their 70s, when they're in their 80s, and saying, wow, what do I do? Do I just rely on Social Security income and pension income to and have to seriously reduce what my expenses are each and every year just to get by? And what I mean by that is, like with a typical traditional IRA, if somebody's investing their monies in mutual funds could be very costly. They could be, on average, right around 1.31% per year of fees. On top of it, an individual could also be leveraging an advisor to say, okay, well, I've rolled my monies over. I'm going to go through the expertise of an advisor to try to tell me how to invest my monies, which mutual funds to choose, and ultimately I'm going to be paying that advisor a specific advisor fee to provide me those recommendations. So maybe it might be 1.25%, 2.5%, 1%, whatever that case might be. But ultimately, these are negatives that are already starting out within your account. That's a pressure that's already going against your account. Now, when we experience this, if these dollars are invested into different types of mutual funds, and let's say it's within that same sort of accumulation mindset, so you're still trying to take on a lot of risk and a lot of potential growth, you might leave yourself exposed to that downward market drawdown, and ultimately lose, have a downward market loss that could ultimately cut your bucket in a third or in half, or a little bit less or a little bit worse. So let's say if somebody experiences just a market correction of minus 10%, and they're paying these different fees, and let's say that this individual has $1 million in an IRA account or in multiple accounts, and they're paying, we'll just call it $10,000 per year in mutual fund related fees, $10,000 per year in advisor fees, and then they experience a $100,000 downward market loss. Well, this individual also now, because he's in his preservation and distribution phase, he needs to start pulling out monies from this account. So now they're going to try to take income from these accounts. Maybe this individual says, okay, I'm going to take 4% or 5% from my original dollar amount, my original $1 million. I'll take out 50 grand this year. So what's essentially occurring is this individual would have taken out $50,000, but they would have ended up losing minus $170,000 worth of value. So walking into the next year, they would only have $830,000. When this person takes out income of 50 grand again, that's going to be a larger percentage. 50,000 is a larger percentage of 830,000 as it is off of $1 million. So that's adding an additional increased pressure. That downward market loss is still potentially there, and they still have to beat out their advisor fees and their mutual fund related fees. If they only receive a gain, let's say if their mutual fund and their advisor fee is 20 grand, and they only experience a gain into their account with whatever the rate of return was of, let's say, $15,000, well, they're still minus $5,000 in the hole because they were paying fees. They're still now pulling out more money, so what it's doing is utilizing the power of compound interest against those types of accounts. And what it ultimately results in is scaring the hell out of people and basically saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to pay an advisor. Was the advisor going to be ethical? Are they giving me the right advice? Are they just trying to make a commission off my monies? I could go and try to do my research on this, but media is, scaring the hell out of me on what exactly I should be investing in. They're telling me one thing one day, the next thing the other. So, what exactly is a solution? And you can leverage dollars into a portion of annuity plans and correct annuity plans. That's the major concept with this. So like in theory, if we're looking at a max income plan and we're trying to leverage an annuity for lifetime income, and this individual, let's call it, has $1 million, and they have it comprised of different, non-qualified based accounts, Roth accounts, IRA accounts, 401k accounts, whatever that case might be, and that's what's making up their overall bucket is sitting at $1 million. First, we want to look at what exactly are their income sources at that date that they want to retire. So if they're currently age 65 and they're looking to retire, well, is Social Security coming to them? Do they have a pension plan? What exactly are these values? If let's say that for this hypothetical example, the values of these two income sources are 50 grand, but this individual needs $100,000 each and every year in retirement, how exactly can they accomplish this successfully? Well, they have to leverage these existing assets. So rather than go and potentially fall victim to that reverse dollar cost averaging effect, if they're not creating a type of strategy or a plan that could protect their backside, that could protect the downside, protect the fees, all those different things, ultimately they can leverage, in theory, they can leverage an annuity contract that would say, okay, out of these dollars, what's the smallest amount of monies that you could utilize, place that into an annuity. So like with any of the 401k or IRA monies that are currently sitting there, you would place them into traditional IRA annuities. So it's staying within that qualified chassis. If it's a Roth account, you would put it in a Roth annuity. If it's a non-qualified account, you'd put it in a non-qualified annuity. So understand that you don't want to commingle all of them into just one plan. You could ultimately have different splices or different accounts that all correlate to the ultimate goal of saying, okay, we understand that this person has $100,000 of expenses in a given year. They're receiving $50,000 per year of income. Well, we have a gap of $50,000. So maybe out of this $1 million bucket, it's going to cost the individual 600 grand to place into annuities to make sure that they're receiving lifetime income. So they're utilizing these dollars, putting it into the top annuity payout contracts, and then that's what's going to be giving them that extra 50 grand so that they're receiving 50,000 from the Social Security and pension, 50,000 from the annuity, and then ultimately that $100,000 is going to be equal to what their expense need is, throughout their retirement years. And what this is giving is that peace of mind that they cannot outlive their monies. Because if we go and let's say that you just take all this money and you throw it into a cash account, so you're not receiving any sort of interest on the money and you just keep pulling out 50,000, 50,000, 50,000 each and every year, well, in that hypothetical example, you would outlive these monies within 20 years. So this is where an annuity could be leveraged. You're utilizing an insurance company, a type of, kind of think of it like an insurance that protects an individual from living too long, because the annuity company is providing that lifetime income stream, or that contract is providing that lifetime income stream, regardless if this person passes away in a couple of years, or if this person lives to 120 years old, or this couple lives to 120 years old. So, that's one portion of it, in that, in theory, yes, an annuity could be very good for that individual situation. It could give them peace of mind to accomplish their income goal in retirement. Now, the problem with that plan is you have about 1,200 different contracts that are offered for that individual situation, and a lot of different marketing ploys going on. So you have companies that are trying to explain these different things known as income riders. You have really small caps. You have very limited benefits. So like in that example, if somebody has $1 million and the client blindly goes into, a horrible plan, well, maybe that advisor might say, okay, it's going to cost you $800,000. You put it with this company ABC, and that annuity company is going to produce $50,000 of income. So that individual would be satisfied, but in reality, if you didn't go with the top option out of these 1,200 plus different contracts, you could have saved yourself over 200 grand by, hypothetically, let's say if the top option was, say, put 600,000 into that plan, and that will produce you $50,000 each and every year. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that companies like to provide, so that an individual essentially gets put into their plan, and they're able to leverage those dollars on the back and reinvest those dollars and make money off of that individual's money. The other thing that is very apparent is something known as annuitization. And this was the problem with annuities. This is what a lot of people got pissed off at annuities, and hence the implementation of annuity riders, of income riders that came out in early 2000s and beyond. And what annuitization did was it made the individual surrender all of their value to the insurance company, and the insurance company was going to produce them a lifetime income stream. So like, it's annuity plans are the opposite of life insurance, especially when we're looking on an income play. So what I mean by that is an individual typically with life insurance is they pay a monthly premium or annual premium to an insurance company. And if this person passes away too soon, this insurance company would pay a lump sum dollar amount to that individual's beneficiaries. It protects them from dying too soon, and to give the beneficiary some sort of benefit from the grave. Now, with an annuity contract, what that individual's doing is taking a lump sum, they're giving it to an insurance company, and the insurance company is providing them monthly payments or annual payments each and every year so that they can never outlive it. So in that example, if you had $1 million bucket and you keep drawing down $50,000, and you live past that 20-year mark, you would have no more monies left. The downside to annuitization was this individual says, okay, if I give 600 grand to the insurance company, and what happens if I get paid $50,000 the first year, $50,000 the second year, and then I pass away? Well, then the insurance company would keep all those monies if you utilize like a single life annuitization in that example. So that's the downside to annuitizations, because individuals want to say, hey, if I don't use this money, I want to have whatever's remaining left over to my beneficiaries. And that's how you could leverage like fixed index annuities with income riders. There's variable annuities with income riders, which I absolutely hate because there's a lot of fees that are associated with it. But ultimately, in theory, that sort of plan could work. And I'm going to explain a process or a strategy on how you could make sure that you're not falling victim to those crappy contracts, and you could actually leverage your dollars properly, the best way. Now, the other aspect is, what about that accumulation phase? And rather than having that rate of return side either be positive or negative, what an individual could do is leverage different annuity contracts and more on a safe accumulation strategy, to make sure that they're either gaining positives whenever those markets go up, or receive 0% whenever the markets go down. So it's eliminating a lot of those negatives and saying, okay, if the market goes down, I know that I'm not going to be losing anything. I don't have any sort of mutual fund related fees. I don't have any sort of advisor fees. There's no downward market losses. And ultimately, I could just be growing this account on a safe and consistent basis, kind of like a bucket with a lid over it. Anytime that the market gains, they're going to open up my lid, pour the gain inside, and now I'm going to have a larger bucket. If the market goes down, that bucket's going to remain closed. So that's explaining the concept of a fixed index annuity without any riders. Variable annuities are basically that same concept. It's basically utilizing an insurance company, but you do have mutual funds. You could potentially have advisor fees, and there's a lot of miscellaneous fees, so a bunch of holes in the bottom of this bucket. So that's why I don't like variable annuities. You could utilize fixed annuities to say, hey, I just want to have a fixed interest rate each and every year. So like a 5-year fixed annuity that could be paying like 3.5%. That might be better than a 5-year bank CD that might only be paying 1.5%, as an example. So that's why individuals will leverage insurance companies for that safe accumulation play. Now, the problems with that safe accumulation play is many times if you have 1,200 plus different options, majority of these options are garbage. So they might only have like one index that it could invest in. They might have extremely small cap rates, meaning that like if the market goes up 20%, but your cap rate is at 3%, you're only going to receive a 3% gain into your account. So you have other contracts that have like uncapped indexing strategies. You have other ones that are not correlated to domestic markets. So you might have different things that have like momentum-based asset classes, such as like a stock index, an international stock index. sorry, a U.S. stock index, an international stock index, a commodity index, a bond index, a real estate index, different things that just kind of give better diversification to say, okay, how could we, really get some good gains into that account and not fall victim to those very low caps. The other very important problem that is occurring is individuals are getting duped into thinking that an income rider benefit is giving a guaranteed rate of return on the individual's physical money. So whether you leverage like a variable annuity or a fixed index annuity and there's an income rider, what exactly does that mean? So like you might hear like a fixed index annuity that's telling you, oh, we're going to give you a 7% guarantee on your money, or variable annuity, we're going to give you an 8% guarantee on your money. And that's not the true story. Basically what happens is that income rider adds an additional variable to the account, an additional benefit to that individual's account, and typically there's going to be a cost associated there. So like if we have a fixed index annuity, and let's say we don't have it with we have it without an income rider, it's like a bucket with a lid over it every time that 1 year anniversary passes, if they're in like a 1 year point to point, and based upon whatever the index does, if the index comes back positive, it's like they're opening up the lid, pouring the gain inside, and you have a larger bucket the next year. If you're going and let's say the next year the index comes back negative, well then that bucket's going to remain closed and there's no negatives, there's no fees associated with that account. If you add an income rider to a fixed index annuity, and let's say a company is saying, oh, we're going to give you a 7% guarantee, well, understand that now their account is broken up into two main components. One, that's their physical money, that's named an account value or variation of that word. And then you have another one, which is an income base, which is either named an income base or variation of that word. So this is nothing more than a calculation account. This is not your real money. Your account value will still be doing that dance of gaining when the market goes up, gaining 0% whenever the market goes down. But now they're going to have, depending upon whatever the cost of that index is, or that income rider is, they're going to have a specific hole in their bucket. So it might be just like 1%, but that's still a negative that's coming out of the account. This income rider provides a type of lifetime income stream at a later date and time. So if like they're getting a 7% guarantee on those monies, and all of a sudden they're looking at their statements, and they look at their statements like after 3 years, and this person put in $100,000, and let's say that their account balance is sitting at $103,000, but their income base is sitting at $120,000. Individuals think, oh, that's their money, $120,000, and that's not the case. It goes by, this is nothing more than a calculation account to say, okay, whenever you're looking to trigger lifetime income, it's going to be whatever the income base is multiplied by a withdrawal rate percentage, and that's what's going to equal that individual's lifetime income. So if the person is not at all concerned, if they're trying to just maximize the actual accumulation strategy, why in the hell are they trying to throw an income rider onto that account? It doesn't make any sense. And this is the bullshit, excuse my language, the bullshit that a lot of advisors try to tack on with clients. And then 3 years, 4 years down the line, the client realizes that the advisor was full of it. And then they go and complain. They realize the advisor's not even in the business anymore. They took the commission and they walked away. So, if you're reviewing this video and you have one of those types of plans, first of all, you can give us a call and we do annuity stress tests, but ultimately really look at what you have, because hopefully you never fell victim to this type of smoke and mirrors approach. So I don't mean to get carried away with a lot of the negatives with these things, but understand there are negatives, but realize that there are positives to these plans when you set them up the right way. So now, if we're looking at an individual situation and we're trying to figure out, the 30,000-foot view and saying, okay, where's this person currently right now? What do they want to be? What are ultimately their goals? And then what is their ideal age that they want to retire, or start their accumulation, or whatever that case might be? How exactly do we get from point A to point B successfully, and then from point B beyond successfully? So this is where we narrow it down into three main things that every individual needs to figure out before they're retired, or if they're currently retired, how to stay retired forever, and then how can we leverage this sort of theory and this sort of strategy towards a retirement annuity plan. And the first thing is what I touched the surface on, was regarding income sources. And with the example, I was saying, okay, well, if somebody has $1 million, they have it comprised of different assets. And this individual, what exactly are their guaranteed income sources? What is their Social Security income? What is their pension income? In this example, if that was $50,000 and their expenses, their need is $100,000, well, that's not greater than the $100,000 of expenses. It has to be better. Whatever their income source is, we want that greater than what their expenses are. So ultimately, in that situation, their expenses are greater, and this tells us that we need to solve for a $50,000 gap. In this example, if this person's looking to retire at age 65, well, they could leverage their different assets. Many times you could leverage 401k monies because they have something known as age-based rollover options. When the person hits 59 and a half, they could take a portion or all their 401k and roll that over into a specifically designed IRA contract. If these monies are sitting in IRAs, whether that be Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, or even just sitting in non-qualified accounts, they have a lot more flexibility to go and leverage those dollars for a primary income solution. So like in this example, this person is 60 years old and they're about 5 years out from retirement. They understand that when they retire, they're going to have a gap of $50,000. Well, how do we suffice that gap? Maybe out of the $1 million, what they could do is segment 500 grand, splice it off into the best hybrid annuity, meaning we're not falling victim to that annuitization, and we're looking for something that will give us the highest payoff. And if that person was to pass away before they ran out of their monies, whatever's remaining in that account balance would go to their beneficiaries. So two things: we want to make sure we're getting the highest income payout, and then the other ones that give us the best indexing options and some other ancillary benefits as well, such as like long-term care protection, slight death benefit protection if necessary. But ultimately what we're trying to do is maximize the step one. So maybe this says, okay, $500,000 out of the original $1 million, that could go into an IRA account, into an IRA annuity, and that would be with IRA number 1, or a portion of IRA monies and a portion of non-qualified and Roth monies. So what that does is it says, okay, out of the $1 million, we scaled through the top 1,200 plus different companies. We went through a whole system of checks and balances. We shot as many holes into these products as possible, and now we have the top 3 option of whatever's left standing. We're going to go over the pros and cons, the pros and cons, pros and cons. Maybe option number 1 is going to be the best option, and that's going to result in only putting in $500,000, and this is going to result in $50,000 of income coming in from the annuity income. You're going to be receiving $50,000 from the pension income, and that 100 grand is going to equal exactly what the expenses are of 100 grand, and that's going to make you satisfied with step 1. When we go on to step 2, this is where we have emergency funds. So rule of thumb is to keep about 6 to 12 months of some sort of emergency, some sort of liquid cash, so that you could pull it for an emergency. So like, let's say if a tree came and fell through your house, or there was a medical ailment or whatever that is, try to leave monies in liquid cash that are not susceptible to large downward market losses, and you don't have monies restricted, within that process. So maybe out of this, you want to take another 50,000, or we'll call it 100,000, and leave that into like an IRA money market account, or just a money market account or a savings account, just so that you could access those monies at any point in time if you ever came to that oh my gosh moment. So if we're utilizing 100,000, well, we understand we used 500,000 for step 1, 100,000 for step 2, and now you have $400,000 remaining for step 3. Step 3, what this goes off of, is something known as inflationary based protection. Let me clear up the screen real quick so it doesn't look as sloppy. The reality of the situation is when we're looking at like step 1 with income, if this person's age 65, well, they might have expenses of $100,000 at age 65, but most likely these expenses are going to increase with the cost of goods and services each and every year. So maybe it might be that they need, by the time they're age 67, they might need to pull out $102,000 of income. Maybe by the time they're age 70, they might need to pull out $104,000 of income. So it really depends upon what the cost of goods and services are. That's going to be above what that income annuity is paying with like a level benefit. So many times individuals, they might get duped into like an inflationary rider onto annuities, and typically what that results in is thousands of more dollars to get placed into a crappier product with just an inflation related benefit, so it makes them feel warm and fuzzy. So what you could actually do is just set up more of a growth strategy with this inflationary plan. So like what I mean by that is, let's say if somebody goes and they understand they need $50,000 per year of income and they have $1,000,000, and we understand that the best related level level benefit is going to be paying 500 grand per year. Sorry, is going to be paying $50,000 per year, is going to be $500,000 to put into that plan. Well, maybe you could have the best inflationary protected annuity that would cost you 900 grand. It would still give you $50,000 per year, but then this 50,000 is going to have some sort of income step up. I absolutely hate those types of contracts, and whenever we compare them to a level benefit, they don't make mathematical sense to place those dollars in there. So what we would do is still stay with that $50,000 level benefit for step one. Make sure that we're still leaving those monies aside in step two with the emergency and the money market or cash account savings. And then we would leverage the other remaining $400,000 in a regular inflationary related plan. So that could be saying, okay, maybe we'll take 200,000 and put it into like a fixed annuity, put it into a fixed index annuity, or maybe put 100,000 in a fixed, 100,000 in a fixed index annuity, whatever that case might be, so that these monies are growing safely and consistently. If the market goes up, great. The FIA is going to give you a little bit more juice. If the market goes down, well, that's fine, because then the fixed account is going to give you a little bit more juice. And then the other $200,000, leave those money in investments. Have fun with it. Try to, play it like you would at a casino. Try to have, you could leverage different tactical managed money approaches and leverage investment advisors for this type of monies and for this type of account, to just make sure that these monies are growing as best as possible. Or if you want to dabble into stocks and bonds, whatever that is, you're not risking your monies. You have your safe monies are designated in an area. Your safe monies are designated in an area on the income. Your safe monies are designated in an area for emergencies, for inflation, and then you have your remaining portion of dollars as your fund monies to either say, hey, if you have a good year, great, take an extra trip, take an extra really good vacation that year. Or if you don't, then maybe just stay put to what your original expenses were going to be projected for. So ultimately, you can use annuities in very good ways, especially for retirement plans. The downside is to fall victim to all those negatives I was telling you about, all the problems that I was telling you about. So you could cherry pick and have the ultimate goal is to say you only want to leverage annuity plans for the smallest amount of dollars and only as much as necessary that would accomplish your goal, and then either leave those monies in cash or leave those monies in investments and have fun with it, because in retirement you're supposed to have fun. You've worked your entire life to get to retirement. You shouldn't have to stress out constantly looking at, MSNBC and saying, oh my gosh, what's going on with the market? What exactly is going to happen with my money? What's going to happen with my money? And that's ultimately what you want to do, is take away that worry and possibly have a type of insurance on your money. And that's where you could leverage annuities. But, once again, there's a lot of, it might sound all rainbows and butterflies. In reality, there's a lot of cons. So that's why what we try to do is educate you on your current situation, see exactly what are your goals, and then try to help you accomplish your goals most successfully. If you found value in this video, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the biggest takeaway is to understand that with retirement, you only have one chance to get things done correctly. You don't want to fall victim to a lot of the common mistakes. And, education is key, especially in retirement. And we try to utilize a transparent approach to show you why are we making these recommendations, not just beat you over the head telling you how smart we are and how stupid you are, and it's very insulting. And unfortunately, that's what majority of the phone calls that call into the office are individuals that are just nervous, and that they want to feel comfortable with their retirement. They want to make sure that they're part of the process, and that's what we try to do. So give our 1-800 number a call, or even an easier route would be to go directly to our website and schedule a calendar appointment. And what I mean by that is if you type in the link, if you click on the link that's in the description box, it's going to bring you to afosifinancial.com. You could put in retiresharp.com or afosifinancial.com. It's all going to bring you to the same spot. And you're going to see this little icon that pops up on the bottom right-hand side to schedule an appointment. So you just simply schedule the appointment and basically put in your information. It's synced with our specialists in the calendar of our specialists. So you can put in exactly your ideal date and time. And, a specialist will give you a call at that time after you're done with work or on the weekends or whatever that case might be. So once again, I want to thank you very much for watching this video, and please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you could have access to the most updated videos. Thanks so much, guys.